There is a side of the moon that no human being had ever seen with their own eyes. Not the Apollo astronauts, not anyone. For the entire history of human spaceflight, every mission, every orbit, every moonwalk, that half of the moon stayed completely hidden. We had satellite photos, we had radar maps, we had computer data. But looking at data on a screen is completely different from actually seeing something with your own eyes. On April 6, 2026, 4 astronauts finally saw it. And what they found out there didn't just fill in a blank on a map. It broke open questions that scientists are still trying to answer today. Questions about what is buried under that surface. What is still generating heat down there? And why the moon we thought we completely understood looks nothing like what these 4 people actually saw with their own eyes. This is the real story of Artemis 2. Before we talk about what they saw, you need to know how close this mission came to never happening at all. NASA's Space Launch System, the most powerful rocket ever built by the agency, spent the early months of 2026 causing nothing but headaches. First, it started leaking hydrogen during a routine test in February. Engineers fixed it. Then, days later, it started leaking helium. This time, NASA made the bigger call: roll the entire rocket back inside, take it apart, fix everything properly, and start again. Weeks of extra work just to get back to where they already were. When the rocket finally returned to the launch pad and the crew was suited up and ready on April 1st, there was one final scare. Strange readings from the flight termination system, basically the rocket's self-destruct button, threatened to delay or cancel everything. Think of it as a series of explosive charges that can blow the rocket apart mid-air if it ever spins out of control, protecting everyone on the ground below. Engineers looked into it and traced the problem to nothing more than a faulty sensor. The rocket itself was completely fine. At 6:35 inches the evening, 8.8 million pounds of thrust fired beneath them, and the Space Launch System rose into a clear Florida sky. 4 people were on board. Commander Reed Wiseman, experienced NASA astronaut and former space station commander. Pilot Victor Glover, the first black astronaut ever assigned to a lunar mission. Mission specialist Christina Koch, who already holds the record for the longest spaceflight by a woman. And mission specialist Jeremy Hansen, the first Canadian in history to travel beyond Earth orbit. They named their Orion spacecraft Integrity, a tribute to the international teams from America, Europe, and Canada, who built every single piece of it together. 8.5 minutes after launch, the booster engines cut off. One more engine burn pushed them out to high orbit. And from there, they were heading to the moon. The route they took to the moon is called a free return trajectory. It is the safest path that exists between Earth and the moon. And the fact that this is considered the safe option tells you a lot about how dangerous this whole thing still is. Here is how it works in simple terms. Instead of fighting gravity the whole way, the spacecraft uses it. As the ship gets close to the moon, lunar gravity grabs it, swings it around the far side like a slingshot, and throws it back in the direction of Earth. Earth's gravity then takes over and pulls the crew home naturally. Even if the engine had completely failed after the first burn, they were still coming back. Gravity would have brought them home on its own. Apollo 13 used this exact same path in 1970 for exactly the same reason. Before reaching the moon, the crew ran a full systems check. 2 problems showed up. First, the toilet broke. The suction fan in the urination system stopped working, which meant the crew had to use backup bags instead. The Apollo astronauts used plastic bags for everything back in the 1960s. Integrity had a proper enclosed bathroom, just not a fully working one. The second problem was a Microsoft Outlook IT issue. 2 official NASA email accounts, neither one working. If you have ever tried to log into a work account on a Monday morning, you already understand this completely. Neither problem was serious enough to stop the mission. On April 3rd, about 100,000 miles from Earth, Commander Wiseman pointed a camera out the window and took a single photograph. What came back was something almost impossible to get from low Earth orbit, the entire planet, in one frame. No stitching together of different photos, no computer editing, just Earth completely whole floating in black space. The sun was barely visible on the horizon, so most of the light you see on Earth in that photo is actually moonlight reflecting back onto our planet. NASA called the image "Hello World." 2 words that said everything. We made it out here. Look at what we left behind. And then came the moment nobody in human history had ever experienced before. As Integrity swept around the moon, the far side came into view. And the first thing that hits you is how completely different it looks from the moon we all know. The side we see every night is covered in wide, dark, flat areas called maria, ancient lava flows that flooded massive craters billions of years ago and cooled into smooth, flat rock. About 31% of the near side is this dark volcanic material. It gives the moon its familiar face. The far side has almost none of it, less than 1%. Instead, just craters on top of craters, on top of even older craters, like something kept hammering it for 4 billion years and never stopped. The crust on the far side is also about 50 kilometers thicker than the near side. Nobody can fully explain why. The leading theory is that a massive ancient impact near the South Pole sent a wave of heat through the entire moon, pushing heavier materials toward the near side. That impact created the largest crater in the entire solar system, the South Pole Aitken Basin, 2,500 kilometers wide, 13 kilometers deep, big enough to swallow everything from Texas to Virginia on a US map. And buried beneath its floor, a blob of dense material so heavy it is actually pulling the basin floor downward by more than half a mile. Most likely the metallic core of the asteroid that created it still lodged inside the moon after 4 billion years. Like a bullet, the body never pushed out. The Artemis II crew were the first human eyes to ever see this directly. Christina Koch said fresh craters were shockingly bright against the older surface, like tiny holes poked through a lampshade. Victor Glover became fixated on the line between lunar day and night, where shadows looked like holes, going straight through to the center of the moon. He told Mission Control that what he was seeing was beyond what human beings had evolved to see. As Integrity passed behind the moon, something happened that no human had ever witnessed. The sun slid behind the lunar disk and disappeared. A total solar eclipse from the far side of the moon. On Earth, eclipses last just minutes. But from out here, the moon appears much larger than the sun, so totality lasted nearly 54 minutes. The sun's outer atmosphere blazed in a complete glowing ring around the entire moon. Glover described it as bright enough to light up the moon's entire edge. Hansen reported seeing mountain ridges silhouetted against that burning white ring, features no photograph had ever captured this clearly. During the eclipse, both Hansen and Wiseman spotted brief flashes of light on the lunar surface. There and gone. Possibly small meteorites hitting the surface. Nobody can confirm for certain. Then the signal cut off completely. For 40 minutes, the moon blocked every radio frequency between the spacecraft and Earth. No voice from Houston. No data, nothing. 4 people 252,000 miles from home, completely unreachable.
Integrity and Carroll Crater, loud and clear. Thank you.
When the signal came back, Mission Control erupted. Christina Koch said something simple that stayed with everyone. That seeing Earth disappear behind the moon made her realize everything human beings need, Earth provides. And you cannot truly understand that until you have seen it from the other side. 4 more days of coasting before the most dangerous part of the mission. Re-entry has to be exactly right. Too shallow, and the capsule bounces off the atmosphere back into space. Too steep, and it burns up. 20 minutes before hitting the atmosphere, the crew capsule separated from the service module, which burned up on its own. The capsule flipped heat shield forward and began the final plunge. Earth's gravity pulled it to nearly 32 times the speed of sound. At that speed, air molecules turned into plasma, reaching between 4,000 and 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit around the outside. That plasma conducts electricity, cutting all communication between crew and ground for 6 straight minutes. 6 minutes of complete silence, while the crew experienced 4 times the force of normal gravity pressing down on their bodies. Then the signal came back. 4 voices. All fine. Parachutes deployed at 5,000 feet, slowing the capsule to 19 miles per hour. At 5:07 p.m. on April 10th, off the coast of San Diego, Integrity splashed down into the Pacific Ocean. 10 days. 695,081 miles. Earth to the moon and back. 5 red balloons popped from the nose to keep the capsule upright. The hatch opened, and for the first time in 10 days, 4 astronauts breathed real fresh air. All 4 healthy. All 4 home. Victor Glover said it best after clearing the far side. The moon is not just a poster in the sky that goes by. It is a real place. And Artemis 2 was just the first look. What comes next is going to change everything we think we know all over again. If this video gave you a completely different picture of the moon, hit like, share it with someone who loves space, and subscribe. The next Artemis mission is going to be even bigger.